Greetings from Vodnyan once again. So I was thinking about the thing I said last time, which was that people seem to be having a sort of how would you say, a sense of grief at the moment, and all the different signs of grief, of denial and anger and bargaining and depression and acceptance. And one of the things I couldn't really figure out was what would people be grieving over. And we're obviously not talking about people losing lives, but before all this stuff kicks off. And the only thing I can conclude is that maybe we're losing our illusion of omnipotence, of being sort of all powerful. It's certainly the first time in my life that I can think of, at least for probably going back to 1988, 1989, when we saw the fall of the Soviet Union and the fear of sort of nuclear holocaust disappeared. For a fairly substantial period, probably 30 years, there hasn't been a huge imminent global threat. So, there's probably a good chance that we're getting upset a lot because we don't know how to deal with this, and as I mentioned before, Grandad Mate, Nonna Mate, his generation dealt with this stuff all the time, so it's pretty difficult. The other thing I was sort of wondering about at the moment was that a lot of people are losing their jobs. It's something that we've got to also consider. And when you have an olive oil business that's directly based on tourism and there's nobody here, how do you manage these things? How do you how do you lower or turn down the flame on it? And with people talking about 20%, 30% global unemployment, what does that mean? And states can't carry that much. If only 60% or 70% of people who can work are working, and 30% are on the dole, it's not viable. And one has to wonder again, is it possible in the future that the economy can be slowed, that everybody does a little bit less work but everybody does some work, and in turn, if there's less circulating, then there's less free money, then there's less requirement for going out and endlessly entertaining ourselves, and I wonder, when we pass through all this, will we forget the months that we spent with our families, which can be frustrating at times. Sometimes it can be a little bit too much, but even in the last couple of days I've had some great moments with the kids, which is something often when you're racing and trying to do as much as you can in a business, you don't get a lot of time for that. So I wonder whether we'll forget the quality of the time that we're now relearning that we can have. So and I wonder, can high global unemployment eventually lead to a type of, how do we say, world that doesn't need to constantly overproduce? I mean, capitalism is sort of, it takes a lot of grief, but that's the system I've grown up in. And but capitalism is based on future earnings. It's not based on what you have now. It's based on the promise of tomorrow that you'll produce more, you'll consume more, and all that, and therefore loans and financing can be based all upon that. It's not about actually what we have now, and that's the issue. Why the global economy will have such a difficulty trying to slow down. It's a bit like being on a bicycle. You can go to a certain level, but at some point, if you go too slow, you just sort of fall off. So and there are lots of other different types of financial systems that actually exist. Just capitalism has clearly trumped the lot of them. There's a word I don't like using much, but there you go. There's demure currency, where currency, when you own it, it actually devalues over time, and that encourages people not to hoard wealth, but as soon as you have wealth, to actually put it back into the community, and to buy services and buy things. But also, you don't want to buy too much, because the whole thing is the value is coming down all the time. So demure currencies are more complex than that, but there are other ways to do it. And we've heard about it for such a long time, that the earth is a finite resource, and it is a finite resource, and everything that humans are doing on this planet is based around sort of infinite growth, just constantly growing. And as I said before, maybe there's some learning to be had now. These are really, really interesting and challenging times. So that's on that side. Generally, it's beautiful weather here in Istria. It's quiet as ever. The olives are great. Silvano and the team have been clipping the trees, and soon enough we'll be getting ready to plant veggies and stuff like that. So that's going to be important over the coming time. So we wish you well, and stay safe, courage and well-being. Talk to you soon.